Analysts, so we're going to get started here. Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Peggy West. I'm the organizer for today's webinar. I dubbed it the Hurricane Summit. I've got several quality speakers and a lot of knowledge you're going to hear today. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Every time I offer a hurricane webinar, I speak about something to do with it. And this year I decided to just rattle off a list of supplies. The rest of it you're going to get from your speakers, I'm sure. So I think you should have water bottles, flashlights, candles, matches, candle starters, the automatic ones, gas cans or containers for your cars, batteries, generators, cell phone chargers, a radio, walkie-talkies, canned goods, a big plastic bag. You can buy these big Ziploc bags. You can put all of your documents in there, your insurance policies, your IDs for your family, your copies, first aid kits, extra medicine. Don't forget, if you're taking medicine, put some extra medicine in a Ziploc, and backpacks. And I'm sure there's a lot more that everyone can add to that, but welcome. And I don't want to scare you, but I want you to be prepared. And we always, I always say, evacuate. If the authorities tell you to evacuate, grab all your stuff and evacuate. Your safety is more important for you, your friends, your family, and get out of harm's way. So please stay safe. And also, for your CAMs and board members, I always want to thank you for joining us today. I know you have a lot of choices for webinars, and I appreciate you joining us today. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce the following sponsors. One more thing before I do, some housekeeping. Your credits for your CAMs will be posted in 2 to 3 weeks because the providers have to upload them and the DBPR has to put them on your license. That usually takes 2 to 3 weeks. So just sit tight, check in about 3 weeks. You don't need to put your CAM number into the chat box. We already have it when you registered. Please enter your questions and answers in the Q&A box. This is going to be interactive for both speakers today and the panelists. And hopefully when the questions come up, we can answer them pretty quickly. If not, this is being recorded and we will have those questions sent over to the pertinent speakers or panelists to answer. I want to start with myself to introduce myself again, Peggy West. I'm the webinar organizer, but I also have a job working for Beach and Patio Outdoor Furniture. And something to mention about hurricanes is don't put your furniture in your pool, okay? Stack it up, put it away in your garage, but don't throw it in your pool. A lot of people do that, and it can damage the furniture, and it's very hard to get it out of the pool too. So safety is priority. We are full service. We offer everything from new furniture, pre-owned furniture. We restrap, refurbish, and we deliver. So I'll give you a great price. Give me a call. Next, I want to introduce, I always say the wind beneath my wings, Vinteum software. We have Katie Bassford on. She is the National Account Executive. Katie, tell us about yourself and what Vinteum does for associations.
Yeah, Peggy, thank you so much for that intro. As Peggy mentioned, I'm the national sales executive, so I do work with clients all across the US, although more than half of our clients are in Florida, so we are very, very involved in the Florida market here, especially as the new laws are coming down and compliance is changing. Vinteum software can help your HOA or condo association stay compliant with all of those new laws. We are a platform that provides both a public-facing website as well as a resident portal. So it's a great way to improve communication amongst your community as well as stay compliant with any of those new laws coming out.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Also, I want to, she doesn't like to speak, but I have to say honorable mention to Yasmin, if you could just wave. She's the International Marketing Manager for Vinteum, does a heck of a job. Thank you so much. IT support. Next, I want to just introduce briefly Diana Olert. She's the Business Development Director for Best Roofing. Diana, did you want to say a few words now?
Yes, thank you so much, Peggy. Thank you for being here today for our class. I'm Diana Oler, the Senior Business Development Manager at Best Roofing. Best Roofing is a company that has been in business for 46 years. We're expanding more on the area of Palm Beach. If you need anything from just like a question to an inspection, re-roof, repair, please contact me. I will be more than happy to help you. And I hope you enjoy the class.
Awesome, very good. Next, I want to introduce Ben Friedman, the president of City Quiet Windows and Doors. Ben, would you like to say a few words about yourself and your company?
Yeah, sure. So Peggy, thanks for having us. We got a great panel today. I'm excited to be the moderator. So please put your questions in the chat and I'll get to them as quickly as I can. City Quiet Windows. I am the president and owner of City Quiet Windows and Doors. We provide turnkey white glove service for all window, door, storefront, and railing installations. I hope you guys enjoy the class. If you have any questions from me, my contact information will be in the chat as well.
Perfect. Okay, next, we don't have them on, but I'm going to do a brief introduction for United Professional Engineering, full service engineering firm helping as many people as possible with their milestone inspections, concrete restoration, and their contact now is Brian Rammel. He's a new rep for them, but you also can get a hold of Carmelo Giglio. He's the actual chief engineer and the owner of United Professional Engineering. Next, I want to introduce Ashley. She is on today for Munyon Painting. Ashley, tell us about yourself and what you do for associations.
Hey, yeah, since I'm a little bit more of a newer face, I joined the Munyon team in March, so it's still pretty fresh for me, but actually grew up in Orlando and spent the last 4 years in New York City pursuing an acting career. So I started that over 15 years ago, and I found myself back in Florida last summer, led me into property management, which ultimately led me to Munyon. And so those of you who don't know Munyon, I'm Ashley, the marketing manager for Munyon. Munyon's pretty much Florida's top choice painting contractor for apartment, condo, HOA, commercial, any painting needs, we've got you covered. We've been in business for over 73 years, since 1951. All of the areas in Florida we cover, it's not really limited, we'll cover all of it, but it's primarily West Palm, Orlando, Clearwater, St. Pete, Sarasota, Panama City, and all that good stuff. So if you got any painting needs, feel free to reach out to us. I'm Ashley, so.
Very good, welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, next I want to mention another sponsor that's not on today, but Hafer Company, full service CPA and audit company. They have 4 offices all over Florida, and Nicole Johnson Pendergrass would be your contact. And just to mention, I will have everyone that's on today on a sponsor sheet that I will send out following the webinar. With that, I just want to mention if the panelists could just raise their hands as I call your name. They're going to speak at the end of the 2 presentations, but we have a distinguished panel. And starting with Ben Friedman again, he's with City Quiet Windows and Doors. He's the president and today's moderator. Lisa Elkin, she's the vice president for Alliance Association Bank. Thank you, Lisa. I have Katie Basford on the panel today, National Account Executive with Vinteum Software. Then we have Beth Garcia Swopa. She's with Brown & Brown Insurance and a senior vice president as well. One of the panelists could make it today, Erica D'Alessandro. She's with Nuvo Elevators, but I will reach out to her. I just found this out this morning and see if she has anything that she wants to send to you regarding elevators for those of you that have it. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ben Friedman. Ben, take it away for the 2 hours, and thank you again for coming. Maybe your mic is off.
It would help if my mic was on,
That would be good.
being the moderator. Sometimes the computer likes to shut me up, so, you know. Anyway, so thanks for having us, Peggy. You always do a great job of putting these events together. We really appreciate it. We have 2 great presentations today from 2 really good friends of mine and my business and the industry. Diana and Zack from Best Roofing will put on a 1-hour presentation. We're very strict on time, guys, so I hope you keep it to 1 hour, please. And then we'll hear from Ricardo from RMS. And like I said, if there's any questions, please put them in the chat. I will rudely but professionally interrupt the presenters and ask the questions if time allows. And with that said, Zach, Diana, I'm going to turn it over to you guys first.
Thank you, Van. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We're offering hurricane preparedness 1 hour CU class. You're gonna get an OPP or elective credit. Please be sure that you provide to us your CAM number so we can post these credits for you. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Zack Towers, VP of Pest Roofing. Enjoy your class.
Yep, sure. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon now. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We have an incredible panel, a lot of great minds here, a lot of great vendors, and I just encourage you, ask questions. The people on this chat, the people on this panel are your best resource when it comes to preparing for hurricane season, but also responding to hurricane season. Today, my presentation is about hurricane preparedness. It is going to be more focused on the roofing side of hurricane preparedness, but a lot of the things we're going to touch on kind of apply to all elements of your building and your property as well. So we'll kind of go in and out. And as Ben said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that come up. Just type them in the chat and I'll do the best I can to answer. So we're going to hop in here. The agenda today is going to be, in the beginning, a roofing recap. So if you've been on our class before, it'll look kind of familiar. We'll kind of shoot through, look at different types of roofing systems real quick, just so you have a good idea of what we're talking about. And then we're going to look at some historical storms. We're going to look at some predictions for this year, really just to understand the type of risk we're talking about when we talk about hurricane season in Florida and the risk we should be prepared for. We're going to talk about your roof and how your roof can be hurricane ready and prepared for anything we might get this year. A lot of that's going to be done with assessments and inspections and maintenance, of course. We're going to look at different steps you can take to make sure you hire a right contractor. And that's one of those steps that really applies to all your vendors. How do you hire a right vendor? How do you have the right relationships going into storm season? And then at the end, we did create a couple slides, kind of like Peggy mentioned, just to have general knowledge of going into hurricane season. So 5 steps to ready is going to cover some good steps that everyone should just have and be prepared for anything that happens. Final questions, of course, but at any point, feel free, type them in there and we'll do what we can to get them answered. So let's jump in here. Today, my presentation is about shelter. So shelter is one of your 4 basic human needs. And in our case, that's the roof over your head. And we want to do everything we can to make sure your shelter is in tip-top shape and it's not going anywhere. When it comes to the roofing of your shelter, whether it's your business, your home, typically you're going to have either low slope flat roofs or you're going to have steep slope pitched roofs. Now here in Florida, the most common steep slope pitched roofs you're going to see are going to be your tile, your shingle, or your metal roofs. There are a couple other variations. You might have some wood shake, maybe some synthetic roofing, but I'd say these 3 by far are your most common when it comes to steep slope roofs. And this could be a condo, a home, anything like that. For your low slope flat roofs, these are going to be your most common low slope flat roofs. Your single plies, which there's a lot of different acronyms that come with single plies. It could be a TPO, a PVC, a KEE. And if anyone has individual questions about those systems, let us know. They each are great in their own ways. Modified bitumen, that's a 2-ply, very common system that we use. And then built-up roofing. Built-up roofing's been around for a very long time. These days, single-ply modified are being installed more often and more common than built-up, but a built-up roof can still perform very well if it's installed and maintained correctly. So again, these are your 3 most common flat roofs that you're going to see, especially down here in South Florida. Here's just an illustration of roof types and styles. So the majority of these would be considered a sloped roof. And as you can see, it looks like a bunch of houses almost. But down here, and in general, probably your most common roof styles are going to be your gabled roof, which kind of looks like the big A-frame style roofing. And you see that on a lot of houses. Your flat roof, which is, of course, flat roofing. and then a mansard roof, you'll see down there on the bottom. And a lot of people have mansard roofs on their properties, but don't know that's what they're called. And we get that question a lot. So a mansard roof is if you have a flat roof, the top of your building's completely flat, and then you have shingles or tiles that wrap around that flat roof, that's actually called a mansard roof. So if you ever have an issue with that, that's a good term you could throw out, and we'll know exactly what you're talking about. So I want to get in now to just understanding the risk, and we'll start with this year. And this is from Colorado State University, and probably most of everyone on here has seen these predictions, but they are predicting a very, very active hurricane season. And I know probably the last 4 to 5 years, they've been predicting very active hurricane seasons. It seems like every year, it looks like it's going to be more and more intense. But as you can see, compared to 2022, we are much more active this year. And especially looking down at the Cat 3 plus column. Now, Category 3 and above, those are hurricanes that cause serious damage. Those are life-threatening hurricanes. And as Peggy said, that's when you start getting into those warnings and possible evacuation notices. And I agree with her. If you have an evacuation notice for any of these hurricanes, but especially a Category 3 and above, it's best just to heed the call and hit the road. When you look at the different categories of hurricanes, once a storm reaches 74 mile per hour sustained winds, you enter a Category 1 hurricane. And then you can see this stages up all the way to over 155 mile an hour winds. And then a hurricane kind of goes off the scale. And you'll see a couple hurricanes in a minute that did just that. They were Category 5 plus. But at the bottom here, it kind of gives you a little breakdown of what you can expect generally with these different categories of hurricanes. Category 1, Category 2, that's typically going to be minimal or moderate damage to your home. So maybe if you have shingles and things like that, you might see some damage to those. Your trees, your yard furniture, your pool furniture, things like that are going to blow around. But once you start getting into Category 3 and above, that's when you really start to have to be concerned about damage, not only from the wind, but from the storm surge. And as you'll see in a minute, when it comes to life-threatening conditions in a hurricane, really the most life-threatening condition is the storm surge. So as a roofing contractor, I think about wind and how to keep your roof on in the case of wind. But honestly, the storm surge is something you should be even more worried about than the wind. Here is a graph. This graph kind of shows you from 1944, and this stops in 2020. But it shows peak season. So we know that hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th. But this shows you the most common times as hurricanes do occur. And according to this graph, it looks, September to October is really the peak season. I will say in the past 5-6 years, it's felt like the season has gotten a little later and a little later. Even, peak season in that October, November times a year. But it's a good idea. And this really gives you a good idea of when to expect things to heat up with the hurricane season. Just to recap on some of these storms, and again, just so we understand the damage in the different categories, Hurricane Andrew is, I'm sure many of us are all familiar with Hurricane Andrew and what it did to South Florida. But Hurricane Andrew, even though it only, I say only lightly, caused $26 billion in damages, which you'll see compared to some others these days, isn't the most. But it is considered one of the most devastating storms to ever make landfall in the U.S. It's a Category 5, very heavy sustained winds. But what also was a big deal with Hurricane Andrew is that it exposed a lot of faulty or kind of building codes that weren't up to par here in South Florida. So in case you didn't know, Broward and Miami-Dade County are the only high velocity hurricane wind zones in the nation. And a big part of that comes from the devastation that took place during Hurricane Andrew. So after this hurricane is when everyone really started to look at the building codes, and the building codes started getting upgraded and rewritten. And now they get upgraded almost yearly. And I'm sure Ricardo is going to talk to you more about some of those building codes and the importance of them. Hurricane Wilma, this one's important because really this was the last major hurricane that we felt down here in Southeast Florida. I know different areas of Florida, and we'll talk about those in a minute, have been hit with some really bad hurricanes. But at least for down here, Southeast, this is the last one that really hit us hard. So it's been quite a while. We've had this hurricane bubble wrapped around us, and we are hoping and praying that the bubble is still there this year, because the last thing we want is any more of these destructive storms down here. Hurricane Irma. So if you're on the West Coast, you definitely felt this one. And some of us over here on the East side also got some bands that reached out from this. Now, Hurricane Irma is a good example of a lot of what we're going to talk about when it comes to hurricane preparedness on the East Coast, right? And I say that because you can look at the devastation here and you can know that no matter how well you prepare your roof or your building, if you have a direct hit with a Category 4 hurricane, it's going to damage your building. There's nothing you can do to really secure your building for a storm of this magnitude. So a lot of what we're talking about for preparing your roofing or your building, your doors, your windows, and things like that are maybe for the towns that are located 50 miles away from here that only got 60, 70 mile an hour winds. And if you have the right roofing, the right windows, the right doors, the right preparation, then your building could be unfazed while many others have extensive damage. So direct hits, really hard to prevent damage, but you can certainly be ready for those outer bands that sweep through as a hurricane hits other areas. And that's what a lot of this preparation is going to be focused on. Hurricane Michael, this was the first Category 5 hurricane since Hurricane Andrew to make landfall. This is in Panama City and Mexico Beach. This is another one that I went up and actually helped with a lot of restoration from the storm, just trying to help out the communities, and saw some things I couldn't believe. One of the things, again, is the storm surge. On Mexico Beach, there was about 5 miles of houses on the side of the beach that were completely gone because the water came in, flooded 20 feet or so, the winds pushed it back out, and it swept miles and miles of houses just out into the ocean, to the point that there was just concrete pads where these houses used to be. And again, this isn't to scare or fearmonger anyone, but again, as Peggy said, if there's a warning, if there's an evacuation notice, storm surge is coming, it's best to get out of town. And this is the last one we want to touch on. Everyone's very familiar with Hurricane Ian. Just 2 years ago, hit as a Category 4. And if you look at the bottom there, $113 billion in damages. This is by far the costliest hurricane that has ever hit. And that's probably going to keep rising because we are just 2 years into restoration over there. And I would say that they'll be steadily restoring that community and the communities affected for the next 5 years. One of the reasons the damages were so high here is because the storm surge that accompanied Hurricane Ian as it made landfall. So just wanted to go over those so everyone remembers, and just, I think down here, and especially if you're in a place that doesn't get hit by hurricanes kind of become that thing we talk about. But if you don't really experience them, you forget how powerful and dangerous they can be. And in Florida, the truth is we haven't had one for a while down here, but it's not if a hurricane is going to hit, it's when it's going to hit and where it's going to hit. And we should all be prepared for when that day happens. Here's some storm terms I wanted to throw in here. So now you're looking at storms now. If you get these warnings, advisories, because if you don't know what they mean, then they don't mean anything. Simply an advisory is a less serious. This is, there could be something coming. Keep watching the news, keep your eyes peeled. A storm watch means it's a little more serious. They think something's going to develop in the next 48 hours or so. So definitely be watching the news, staying up to date, communicating with your loved ones, just to make sure you have your plans in place. And a storm warning or hurricane warning, that means that they are expecting a hurricane or a tropical storm in that area within the next 36 hours. And that's really when you might see some of those evacuation notices and things like that. And you should listen, because once it becomes a warning, that means the conditions are almost perfect for that storm or that occurrence to happen. When it comes to storms, a tropical depression is really something that we experience quite often in South Florida. It feels like we have a lot of storms, a lot of hanging storms that stick around for weeks at a time. And a tropical depression is a little greater than a hurricane, or a little greater than a thunderstorm, sorry. But it's not going to really do too much damage. It's going to sit on top of you. You can expect kind of winds like you would at a strong storm down here. A tropical storm is when it gets a little more heated. You're talking winds of 40 to 70, 73 miles an hour here. And there's certainly damage that can happen to your property, and your roofing, your windows, blowing around debris. Once you cross that 73 mile per hour mark, that's when you turn into a hurricane. So tropical storm is 40 to 73 miles an hour. And then the storm surge. As mentioned a second ago, storm surge is the dome of water that comes out of the ocean. So it is water that is being pressurized and pushed by those storm force winds, and will push them up on land. And as you can see here, they can be as tall as 25 feet and as wide as 1,000 miles, which is, we can't even conceptualize how big that is. But it also tells you it's very difficult to get away from a storm surge once it starts. So that's the importance of evacuating before the storm hits, because something that high, that wide, it's going to be very hard to get away from, and is by far the greatest threat to life and property. So now that we know what a hurricane is and what a storm is and the destruction that can come, now we're going to talk about, is your roof hurricane ready? June 1st is right around the corner. What are we, 2 weeks away now? The only way to know, and the only way that we know if your roof is hurricane ready, is with pre-storm inspections. So it's getting eyes on that roof, getting up and inspecting that roof. And you see here, I have called out some dates here, and we'll talk about that in a minute and why that's important. So when you inspect your roof to find out if you're storm ready or storm season ready, here are the categories of things that we really look at for those pre-storm inspections. We're going to look at perimeter flashing conditions. We're going to look for any kind of loose debris on the roof surface. We're going to check all your rooftop equipment. We're going to make sure your roof's attached. So whether that's tile roofs, shingle roofs, flat roofs, if there's detachment happening, that's something that could become an issue. We're going to look at all your roof drainage. And then, of course, just like any other roof inspection, we're going to look for voids and open seams and things that could be leaks. We do that. At Best Roofing, we do it with what we call a forensic roof audit. Different companies might call it different things. Ours is a forensic roof audit, and this is where we inspect the roof. We identify all these deficiencies, or if there are deficiencies. We also identify lack thereof, which is just as important when it comes to storm season. And then we're going to produce a photo report. Now, this photo report is very important because it'll show you whether or not you have damage on this roof. So if you can see here, and this is what was important a second ago, at the bottom of all these photos is time-stamped and dated. So if you have a pre-storm inspection that's done, you want to make sure that your photos are time-stamped and dated, and you save that file for two reasons. One, you want to see the photos of things you might need to repair, and you want to see proof, like, okay, you say I need repairs, let me see pictures of it. That's one reason you want to see that. The other reason is when it comes to storm season. Let's say we do a pre-storm inspection on your roofing system and your roof's in great condition. It's perfect condition, there's no damage. You want us to take photos of that, and you want to have it time-stamped and dated, because just in the event that a hurricane or a storm does happen, or we get some outer line high winds from a hurricane that happens up north, let's say, and you have to file an insurance claim, that claim process is going to go much smoother and much quicker for you if you have proof of what your pre-existing conditions were before the storm hit. And if you don't have the proof, you don't have the photo evidence, it's going to be kind of your word against theirs as far as what was there and what wasn't. So the photo report helps to expedite that claim process and make sure you get paid out what you're owed and get brought back home. I would say when it comes to the pre-storm inspections, this is one of the most important things that I would recommend everyone has for their property in general: windows, doors, walls, roofing. Pre-storm inspection reports that are timestamped and dated, and those files, as Peggy said, are kept in a big plastic bag or a vault, whatever it is. Keep them safe. When we look at your inspection, we're going to look at the perimeter attachments. The perimeter attachments are the most important part of your roofing when it comes to high winds. And you'll see here, 85% of hurricane-related roof failures are going to begin at the perimeter. So what happens is that wind comes from one direction or the other, it hits the wall, has nowhere to go, and it's forced directly upwards against the wall. And your roof at the top of that wall is tied on with something. Maybe it's a drip edge or a coping cap or a termination bar, whatever it is. And if that termination isn't secured, that wind will start peeling up, and it's going to push up and pressurize the edge of that roof. And as you can see in this photo, if it's able to work that perimeter loose, it's going to peel your roof back like a tin can. And this, of course, is an example of a flat roof that you're looking at. Same goes for sloped roofs, shingle roofs, anything like that. If that flashing perimeter detail fails, then your roof will fail. And you can see here, as that roof peels back like a tin can, now you're fully exposed to the elements, and you have bad water damage. Nothing's protecting you. So the first thing that we look at when we get on a roof pre-storm season is we're going to look at your perimeter attachments and make sure everything is secure and tight before you get into those high winds that might come. After that, we're going to look at rooftop debris. Okay, and this could be anything. I mean, it could be trash. On flat roofs, as you can see here, sometimes we see people storing materials. There could just be leftover things from old projects, but anything that's loose on top of your roof system should be removed. There should be nothing loose up there. And the reason being, of course, is you have high winds that come through. It's going to kick up those debris, roll them, spin them across the roof, and that's going to puncture your roof, cause leaks. And that debris could also fly off your roof and hit another building or hit somebody. And we don't want any of those things to happen. So anything loose should be taken off your roof. And we're also going to look at your rooftop equipment. This is going to be your fans, your ACs, exhaust vents, things like that. And especially exhaust fans and HVAC units, because you have different panels and different constructions on those units. And those panels are removed and replaced very often as your HVAC tech is maintaining those units. And I don't know if you can see because it's a little small, but all those panels and different components are held on with screws. So the screws over time, they'll either rust out, they lose them. There was 3, now there's 2, and then a year later there's 1. But what happens is you get a high wind, and that wind works those panels loose, and then it'll skip those panels across the roof. And again, you have punctures and you have wind-blown debris. So we're going to look for already loose debris, and we're going to look for anything that could become loose when there's high winds. The next thing we're going to look at is roof attachments. And this could be on a steep slope roof. This could be on a flat roof. But either way, we want to know that that roof is attached and secure. So you see here on the left, checking the attachment of some tiles. Last thing we want is for a tile to come loose and to cartwheel across that roof and break other tiles. On the right, you see a flat roof. And similar thing, these flat roofs, even though they're attached differently in different concepts, they can come loose. And if they're not installed properly, maybe that has something to do with it. But if your membrane isn't secured, that membrane can pressurize and tear, and then you'll also have a roof failure. So as we're up there, we're going to check the perimeter. We're going to look for debris. We're going to check all your rooftop equipment, make sure everything's solid. And then we're going to make sure your roof's attached the way it should be, so you don't have any failures. Before we get off that roof, we have to make sure that your water and the water that comes down in some of these heavy rains has somewhere to go. And that's either through your drains or your gutters, or maybe an open edge. And there's a lot of risks that come with blocked up drains. One of them, of course, is if you have ponding water that can over time damage a roof. But the more severe ones, when you talk about flat roofing and heavy rains, is that if that water doesn't have anywhere to go and you have a flat roof, that roof will turn into a swimming pool. And your roof is not designed to hold the weight of a swimming pool. And here last April, we had, this torrential downpour in Fort Lauderdale. We had 26 inches of rain in like 6 or 8 hours. It was something incredible. And there was actually a roof here in Fort Lauderdale that did collapse through the weight of that rain. It was a building, luckily, that no one was currently in, but the drains were backed up. The water didn't have anywhere to go, and it caused that building to collapse. So you can imagine how risky that could be. And this is one of those maintenance items that is so easily done that it's really just pure negligence if it's not done and taken care of. And this can be, you call a roofing company to do it, but if you have a maintenance guy or someone that can get up there safely, they could look at these drains, make sure they're clear as well, because this is one of the most important parts of an operative roof system is having proper drainage. And then, of course, open seams, laps, penetrations. This is something we're going to look at no matter what time of year it is. This is where roof leaks happen. So whether it's your pitch pans, your open seams on your roofing itself, if we find something where water is getting in the roofing system or has the ability to get in the roofing system, what we label this as on our reports, and I think you'll see in a minute here, are emergency leaks or emergency repairs. And anything that we call an emergency repair means that there is water actively making its way into your roofing system, and it should be fixed. And here's that recap I was talking about. When we do our forensic roof audit, which could be your pre-storm inspection, or anytime we're out there, we perform the audit. We grade all your membrane, your penetrations, your flashings, your sheet metals, and it can be used in conjunction with your photo report. So you'll get the roof audit that says like this is the condition of your roof. Over here on the right, you see emergency leak repairs, remedial maintenance, replacement budgets. These are all just resources. The main one is the emergency leak repair. If someone tells you you have a hole in your roof or you have a split seam before hurricane season, I highly recommend you get that taken care of. Last thing you want is for one of those things to make itself known in the middle of a tropical storm. So make sure you're watertight. And then how our reports work is you'll see over here on the left, the condition summary. We grade everything A through F. We come out with an average. And then this roof we grade it as a C. And what that means for us is that this roof is still in its repair and maintenance phase. Means it's a good roof. It's a solid roof. You should perform your annual repairs and maintenance. And you probably have 5 to 9 years roughly left of that roof's life before you have to start thinking about replacements and things like that. So that's our inspection protocol. And it kind of ties in with pre-storm inspections. It's all stuff you should be looking at anyways. But I do want to touch on in the recap here is the most important thing is, of course, your perimeters, making sure everything's watertight, there's no debris, but having photo documentation of that roof and that roof condition prior to storm season is critical, because if something happens, you're going to wish you had a photo report showing what it was like before an event occurred. This is a slide that's going to kind of tie into Ben and Ricardo as well. And this is the reason that everything, when you talk about the envelope and your building, that roofs, windows, and doors are really tied together. And the reason being is that I could put the best roof in the world on your home or your building. The perimeters are secure. That roof could withstand the highest wind, all the good stuff, right? But it would not matter if you didn't also have good windows and doors. And the reason being is that when that wind comes and hits your property, maybe the roof doesn't go anywhere and the wind works its way around the roof. But if that wind blows out a window or a door, it will pressurize your building, your house, your property, and will actually blow our roofs off from the inside out because they're not designed for that style pressure. So this is why you always hear roofs, windows, and doors being associated with each other. As when you upgrade your roof, you should really upgrade your windows and doors for this very reason. And I'm sure Ben and Ricardo will touch on some of this as well in their presentations. This is a little recap here. Protective measures for your roof prior to hurricane season. Have a trusted roofing partner. Okay. Obviously, this pertains to my presentation, but this goes for everyone you're going to hear from and talk to on this panel today. Have a trusted vendor relationship. Have a trusted pack of people that you can go to that you already have a relationship with prior to something happening. And I'll tell you why this is so important is worst case scenario, a storm hits where you are, hits your property, your home, and you don't already have a relationship with one of these vendors. Well, all the vendors that you want to work with are going to be so busy servicing their existing relationships that you're going to have to start relying on the people coming in from out of town and the storm chasers and the people that come in after the work. And you're going to have to kind of weigh your odds of whether or not you can trust these contractors you never heard of coming into town. Now, some of them are great. Some of them are not so great. But I can tell you personally, I would rather have a relationship with a trusted vendor that I already knew, that I know I can call when something happens, than have to try to vet a new vendor once something does happen. So trusted roofing partner, but in all seriousness, a trusted vendor relationship with all the different components that you might need. The pre-storm inspection, again, is critical to make sure your roof is ready, your building is ready for storm season. If there is something that's needed, if we did an inspection and say, hey, these are the things that you should do, I wouldn't recommend them if you didn't need to do them. So that, again, could be us, could be someone else. But if they show you something needs to be done, it's better just to get it done, get it tight, so you don't have issues down the road. You want to check all your drains. This is going to be done as part of your inspection, but also throughout the summer, especially here in Florida, we get high winds and like almost feels like tropical storm strength winds every day at 1 o'clock. And it's blowing around tree limbs and debris and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of people know intuitively that after a hurricane, you should inspect your roof. But I recommend that after any time one of those strong storms kicks up, and if you have a maintenance guy, if you have someone that can do it safely, have someone just walk up there, check the drains, make sure there's not trash and debris and limbs like that on your roof. And the last one, which I think is critical, is that time-stamped and dated photo report of pre-existing conditions. When it comes to a claim process, and I have worked insurance claims all across the country, this report will save you months and sometimes years in a claims process by having time-stamped and date photos.
Hey, Zach, I got a quick interruption here, bud.
Sure.
There's a question in the question answer. Is there a particular as of date our restorm inspection should be? For example, like or before June 1st, 2024?
I don't believe so. As long as the inspection occurred prior to the date of loss, the report will stand as far as pre-existing conditions. If you look at it purely from a risk standpoint, I think it's a good idea to have it done before the start of storm season. But really it's going to come down to the date versus the date of loss that's on the claim.
Okay. If the individual that put that in the chat, if that doesn't suffice for from an answer standpoint, just contact myself or Zach after the meeting's over, and we'll be happy to address that at a higher level.
Absolutely. Good questions. We're going to touch on roof warranties and insurance just for a minute. And again, if we want to dive deeper into insurance, I think anyone on this panel would love to have those conversations. So we will keep a high level here. Roof warranties, and really warranties of any kind, they can be great. They're great if you know what they are, what you use them for. But as long as you understand, because I think a lot of people sometimes think they have warranties on things that they don't really have warranties for. And the truth is, and I tell my clients this, we all share this openly. there's only really two things that are covered on a warranty, roof, and I'll speak for myself as a roofing contractor. There's going to be two different things that are covered on your roof system when it's warranted. The first is going to be workmanship. So workmanship warranties are going to be issued by us. So Best Roofing would issue a workmanship warranty. This warranty covers things that we install, the way we installed things. And if one of those things fails because of the way we installed it or poor workmanship, then that warranty covers that to be repaired or fixed. A material defects warranty is going to come from the manufacturer of your roofing materials. So let's say we install a TPO roofing system. Well, GAF made that TPO membrane in a factory somewhere. So they're the ones that actually give you the warranty for the material itself. But what that warranty covers is material defects. So if that material defects or fails or delaminates or anything else that we could go through in a way that it's not supposed to, then that's what the warranty covers from the manufacturer. Besides those two things, nothing else is going to be covered on those warranties. Whether it's tropical storms, hurricanes, people up throwing parties on your roof, the HVAC guy dropping screwdrivers in your roof. It doesn't matter what it is. Nothing else is going to be covered under those warranties unless it falls into those first two buckets. And this is something we talk about, we explain to all of our clients as well. Yes, you have a 20-year warranty, but we want to talk about the exclusions. You always want to look straight to your exclusions of coverage. And this is not, you're trying to get something, it's not negative. It is, you need to understand and have transparency of what am I covered for? What am I not covered for? And it gets you in a position where you can hold responsibility and take care of your properties. When it comes to property and casualty insurance, what's not covered is going to be negligence, pre-existing conditions. Now, this is where we tie this back into photo reports, okay? And as you can see here, this is actually a photo of a drain down in Coral Gables. And it took us a little while to find this drain, as you can imagine. And the reason this photo is on here is because this would be considered as negligence. So let's say a storm did come. This roof is clearly not maintained. So storm came, torrential downpour, flooded this roof, caused some damage, or worst case scenario, caused this roof to collapse. And the cause being was these drains not allowing water to get off that roof. Well, your carrier, your insurance, they're going to consider this negligence on your part for not maintaining your property, and they're going to deny that claim, which is a very scary thing if you think about all the repercussions that can come from that. Also, pre-existing conditions. So this is where it gets heavy into having that photo report, because you want to be able to show what the pre-existing conditions actually were versus what the conditions are now. Because you get a storm that kicks something across your roof, it causes a big gash in your roof, and then you make an insurance claim and they come out and say, well, that's a pre-existing condition, we're not going to cover that. And of course, that's an extreme example. But if you have a photo report like we've talked about showing it wasn't like that, it's going to be very difficult for them to make that argument. When it comes to hiring your roofing contractor, and honestly, I recommend this with, again, any of the vendors, the panelists you form relationships with. I would recommend you visit their place of business if you can. Maybe you can't, maybe they're a big national company and they have great capabilities, but they're not local for you to visit. That's okay too. But if you can, I recommend it. Make sure they have experience with the type of property that you're concerned about. You know, if it's your home, if it's a large shopping mall, strip center, or if it's a 46-story condo on the beach. Make sure there's experience with your specific property, because I can tell you from experience, not all properties the same, not all roofing's the same. And the majority of the challenge when it comes to roofing, windows, anything else we're going to talk about today comes with the logistics of doing the work, and more so than the work itself a lot of the times. So experience in dealing with your type of property is a must. make sure who you're working with has the capability to respond in case of an emergency. Maybe you really enjoy someone, maybe you like working with someone or a certain vendor, but if they don't have the resources, they're not large enough, they don't have the capability to respond in an emergency, then having a relationship with somebody who can't respond isn't going to do you any good in the event something does happen. So just verifying, making sure they have the resources and the capabilities to help you if you need it. License and references check. Again, this is for everyone. License and reference check. They should be licensed where you live for what you need, and they should be able to supply references. If they've been around, they do good work, they work with your type of property, they have the ability to respond, there should be no issue supplying you references for this type of work. You want to make sure they have the proper equipment that might be necessary. And again, if you have a 46-story high rise, there's not a crane that's going to reach 46-story high rise. So you want to make sure they understand the logistics behind those jobs. But it is good to have the equipment, whether it's stuff you would need to get dried in, whether it's tarps, whether it's trucks. You want to make sure they have the capabilities and also the equipment to perform the work needed.
Hey, Zach,
Skeptical,
just a 10-minute reminder.
10-minute, perfect. We're right on time. Of course, be skeptical of low prices. I'm not saying that some quality things have to be the most expensive either. But always be skeptical. Get a few different comparisons. Understand what you're buying, what's included, what's not included. That's something Ricardo is specifically great at, and what he helps a lot of owners do, I know this, is looking at whether it's bids or services or different offerings from vendors. And he's able to dissect those different bids and scopes of work and to determine, are these scopes, are these offerings apples to apples? Are they offering the same thing? And if so, that's when you start looking at price. But until you know that, it's hard to know what a price means. Of course, you want to have, or you want to insist on your insurance certificates. This is for work to be done, but also when people get on your property in general. So if you're doing maintenance and repairs and inspections and things like that, it's a good idea to know that you're covered with the right insurance as well. Oh, I think it is. Okay, this is just a quick plug. I forgot to take out of the video, but this is our best roofing service fleet. And this is why I harp so much on the capabilities to perform the work that you sign. Just make sure whoever you work with has the ability to get to you and get you in a timely manner. This is the last couple slides here. This does not pertain to roofing specifically. This is more for you. You can take a screenshot. We can actually send you this in a handout as well. But as Peggy mentioned, it's great to have a plan, right? So you want to make a plan. Make a plan prior to hurricane season. And this is for your home, for your family, for your property, for your residents. Identify meetup locations. Make sure you have points of contact. Build your kits. Make sure you have any medications. And this is something I would recommend you send out to all your residents, your properties, whatever you have. Your documents. Again, big plastic bag, something secure. They're not going to get wet. Make sure your pre-storm inspection photo documentation is in those documents, and then stay informed. So learn about your evacuation routes, learn about where to go if something does happen. And then when you put this plan into action, these are the next steps. And again, not roofing related. This is strictly storm related. Make sure you understand how communication could work between your residents, between your family, between your loved ones. Have a plan, because if the cell phone towers go down, we're all very used to be able to pick up that cell phone and make a phone call and someone answers. So when the cell towers go down, it's a whole different story. I went up and helped at a storm in Louisiana. All the cell towers went down. The power was out for like 7 weeks. There was no communication. Everyone's running around on radios. So make sure you understand what are you going to do? Where are you going to go if you can't pick up that cell phone and call somebody? Make sure if you have to shelter in place. If you have to board up in your home, that you have your food, your supplies. Make sure you understand like what you need, your medications. And then the last one is disasters can happen anywhere. And this is something that a lot of people probably don't consider or think about when they go on vacation. But you're vacationing in Florida or really anywhere. It's a good idea to have a contingency plan, especially during hurricane season, that, hey, if we're down here on the beach having a great time this week and a hurricane comes, what's our plan? My plan would be I would leave, but maybe your plan's different. But it's always a good conversation to have. And this is really the last slide. This is something at Best Roofing. This is kind of our credo, our motto with all of our field units is you have a plan, you share the plan, and you work the plan. If you follow these 3 steps, this is transparent communication for everyone. Everyone understands the plan. And then when you work the plan, you accomplish the goal, or in this case, you keep everyone safe. So that is our hurricane preparedness portion of the panel. And I appreciate you guys for having me, for letting me start this thing up. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Ricardo and Ben and all the rest of the panelists to learn some things myself. So thank you all again. And I'll be around here for the questions at the end.
Awesome, Zach. Thank you so much. I took a lot of really valuable information away from that. I've heard you and Diana speak before, but I think the main thing here is to be prepared, to have a plan, and as I consider Best Roofing one of my trusted partners, make sure that you have your trusted partners and what I call them key players in place in the event that you really need to scramble and make something happen for yourself or for your association. Definitely photo documentation is key. We were very involved ourselves in the Hurricane Ian process, which is still going on. And lastly, when you talk about what happens if you go on vacation and you have to have a plan, I don't know if everybody remembers, but that big storm that came through Acapulco, nobody was expecting that. People went to sleep one night and the next morning their hotels were completely gone. So have a plan, trust the plan, put the plan into action. Zach, thank you. Diana, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. There are some comments, just that, no questions, but comments. If you could share those takeaway sheets that Peggy could get them out to all of the attendees, that would be really great. Turn it over to Peggy for a minute here before I introduce Ricardo.
Yes, I just wanted to just suggest that you have a town hall meeting, not necessarily a board meeting, but make it fun. Have the little, the cupcakes or the drinks or whatever your community is used to. And have someone come from the city or the county and tell you where these evacuation routes are, so you're prepared. They'll come for free and give you some free information, or even have somebody from the fire department. I mean, it's just a fun thing to do. It's informative, and the neighbors get to meet everybody, and it's easy to plan. And I just recommend a town hall meeting for preparation. That's it.
Thank you, Peggy. All right, so there are no questions in the chat box. We'll keep this thing moving so that we can answer lots of questions at the end. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Ricardo. Ricardo and I have crossed paths quite a bit in the industry, and Ricardo's got some really valuable information. But right before I go to Ricardo, I just want to reemphasize, all of these panelists here are very, very useful, valuable people that everyone should get in contact with. Beth from the insurance company, Lisa from the bank, Ashley from Munyon, Vinteum, of course, Peggy, Zack and Diana, all of these different individuals and entities can really be part of your team that you need to assemble in your planning process. So with that, Ricardo, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. And thanks to all the panelists. I think that, excuse me, I'm going to stand on the shoulders of your introduction of the panelists, Ben, because this presentation is assembling your A-team human resources for hurricane readiness. So let's get started. This presentation has an HR CEU credit. RMS, we're a registered provider for DVPR CEU credits. And if you're not an LCAM and you need a certificate, let us know, let Peggy know, and we'll be more than glad to provide you with a certificate. If you are an LCAM, we already have your information and we will process the certificates as soon as possible. So at the end of this presentation, you will be able to identify the key team members needed to respond to an emergency, understand the role of each team member or team candidate, understand the importance of the pre-storm planning. Zack touched a little bit on it, and create the right checklist to minimize your surprises. So what do you need to assemble an A team? So the reason is that after a storm, especially one that affects your building and your operations, you want to get back to business as quick as possible. The last thing you want to do when your building is affected or your operations are affected is to have to go and look for vendors and look for partners when they are all busy and try to negotiate rates or try to negotiate services. This is something that must happen before the storm. Zack touched a little bit on the different types of hurricanes. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but category 1 and 2, they're extremely dangerous. You don't want to be caught outside, but they will inflict some damage to the building, inflict some damage to the trees and your surroundings, but they're not that dangerous, if you will, but you have to be cautious of if you're being warned that Hurricane 1 or 2 are about to hit your area. When you're talking about major storm,
Ricardo,
go ahead.
excuse me, you don't have your slides showing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just know you have them.
Let me make sure I have the right one. Can you see it now?
Yep, we're all good.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
sorry about that. So when you're talking about a category 3, 4, 5, or category 3 or greater, that's when the storm surges, the electricity goes down, the communications come down, the roofs get blown up, the windows get blown in. So that's when you really need to be able to evacuate. Don't wait. Don't be brave and say, okay, I'm going to ride it. If it's category 3 or more, just go somewhere else, go somewhere safe. And with that being said, you still have to prepare to get back to business as quick as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about in this presentation. So what are the components of your building that could be affected or could affect the operations in case of a hurricane? So you have your walls and your windows. People don't realize that more water comes into the building through the walls and the windows than from the roof. The roof is kind of an obvious thing that people keep an eye on, and they forget to look at their walls and their windows and the seals around their windows, the glazing of their windows, the cracks on their buildings. And believe me, more water goes or comes into the buildings through the walls and the windows than through the roofs. The other things that can affect your operations is the surrounding. If trees fall in your access roads and the surrounding your building and it hits your building, those are things that will affect your operations. Of course, your roof, if water comes into the roof, if your drains get clogged and your drains or your secondary emergency overflows are not functioning well or not well designed, you can have problems. As Zack was saying, there was a building that the roof collapsed because the drain was not able to, or the plumbing system was not able to drain that water out quickly, and the roof ended up collapsing. So roofs definitely can affect your operations. The communication will impact the ability to communicate. If the light goes out and you don't have internet and you don't have a phone system, your communications will be affected in case of a storm. And of course, it all has to do with the electricity. Your power goes out, it's going to affect your operation, it's going to affect your ability to come back to or go back to business quickly. So planning is critical. In the case of a storm is affecting your building operations, what really becomes urgent? So the most important thing is safety. The well-being of your building occupants, it has to be number one priority after a major storm has affected the integrity of your building. Make sure that there are no live wires, laying on the ground around your building as you come after the storm and inspect the surroundings. There have been numerous deaths of people wandering around their building after a storm hits, and there's a live wire laying on the ground on a puddle. They step on the puddle and that's it. They're dead. It has happened numerous times. Triage the damage. Having a real-time assessment of the building components that were affected will provide a space to developing and to deploying, your preparedness plan efficiently. So you have to triage what's important for your operations and start deploying your plans accordingly. Minimize the impact. So take actions to stop the bleeding so that things can get stabilized and deploy your recovery plan. So for an example, electricity, you have to have either a backup plan, a generator on site to alleviate the loss of power, and that will trigger the operation of your internet, your communications, your phones, etc., etc. And then you have to restore your operations. Keep the momentum going on your way to getting back to business as usual, as quick as possible. So Zack talked about, having a plan, make a plan, share the plan, work the plan. This is what it's all about. You have to have a plan, and I'll be reiterating this throughout the presentation. So what is the lineup for the A-team as it comes to hurricane preparedness? So you're going to have, and you have to have good communication with your insurance agent, knowing your coverage and limitations before you need to make a claim, allows to make necessary adjustment to your policies and know your exposure. And this is not going to happen right before the storm or after the storm hits. You have to have this ahead of time. And we have a panelist. We have Beth Garcia on the panelist. And I don't know, Beth, if you want to expand a little bit on the importance of the communication between the building owners and their insurance agents.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to the point of both Ricardo and Zack, it is plan, plan, plan. Now is the best time, if you haven't already done so, to sit down with your agent and go through what your coverages are, what are your out-of-pocket exposures. I'm going to talk about some things at the end when we go through the panel list. But as far as like the photos, figuring out what's important documents, getting those together now, because when that hurricane is impending and it's sitting off our shores, this is probably the last thing you're going to start thinking about, because then it's going to be protecting your families, protecting your belongings. And also another extra step is not just your building, but your unit owners, the owners of what's the difference as far as what their responsibilities are, what they should be doing in addition to what you're doing to protect your building. So again, pre-plan this, have it written out now. So when that time comes, it's just full effect implementation, business as always. So that way you can protect your own personal families and units.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Another important partner that you must have in your arsenal is the debris removal professional. In order to tend to your building and tend the needs of your building after a storm, they must be able to get to your building. So it is important to get together with a debris removal professional to assess what the critical route is from the road down to the entrance of your building, or to your utility room, or to your electrical room, so that path is cleared immediately, or as soon as possible after the storm hits. There could be debris, trees that will prevent the trucks from FP&L to access critical area of your electrical infrastructure. So make sure that that critical path is clear. So having a debris removal professional in your arsenal, it's key to the quick recovery of your building. That could be a bottleneck in your recovery if you don't plan ahead and have somebody already in place for after the storm. And this is something that it's often overlooked. People don't think about the debris removal professionals to have a relationship with, because they typically don't need them. So, but it's again, that could create a big bottleneck for you. Your building envelope professional, knowing the truth regarding your building before the storm hits, with assessments, with inspections, with photographs that will allow you to really assess the state of your building and assess if there's any repairs or any mitigation that needs to be done before the storm hits. It's key, and I can assure you that it's at least 10 times less expensive to do it before the storm than after the storm. The ratio between preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance is about 1:4, but it can easily go to 1:10 if it's an emergency. So if you can catch something that costs $1 to attend to, do it instead of waiting for it to cost $10 to be repaired. So this is where your building envelope professional can help you determine the state of your building before the storm hits. You should have a restoration professional. A restoration professional is a contractor that, in case you have water intrusion, wind damage inside your building, that the water has come into the building, they will come as soon as possible and start drying your carpets, your drywall. In case of a fire breaks out, they'll come, they make the repairs. But again, it is important to have those people in place before the storm and not after. And I'm going to touch on the particular roles and responsibility of this lineup.
Hey,
The structural
Ricardo.
engineer.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Ricardo, I got a quick comment here. One comment was, are you capable of handling commercial office buildings as well?
Yes, absolutely. That's more of our bread and butter.
Okay, I'll share that contact info with you.
Okay. You know, with what happened at Surfside, people are more aware of they're paying more attention to the structural integrity of their buildings. So same thing. I know Carmela's not on the present today. He's one of the sponsors, but they're a structural engineer that can do an evaluation of the structure. Not so much on the roof, not so much on although they can do that too, but the structural integrity of the building. If there are cracks that are developing in your building, pay attention and listen to what your building is telling you. Be observant of changes in color on your facades or on your walls. That could mean that there's some cracks on your building that you might not see them. They might not be in the middle of the wall. They could be on a 90-degree angle where a wall changes direction, that you can have a crack and water could be going in and affecting the structure of the building. So make sure that you listen to your building, be observant of the condition of your building, and have a structural contractor. When you have a hurricane and sustained winds of over 140 miles an hour hitting your building, you want to make sure that after the storm, the structure of your building is sound. At that point, maybe your walls, your windows, your roofs have been damaged. But if the structure is sound, you can easily come back to or go back to business as usual if the structure is sound. So have a structural engineer in place. And then you have your professional contractors. Your roofing contractor, somebody like Best, somebody or your trusted partner when it comes to your telecommunications, your electrical, your mechanical contractor, your plumbing contractor, your waterproofing contractor, a general contractor. All those should be lined up to be able to help you. You know, on a major storm, your windows most likely going to be effective. So having somebody like Ben in your arsenal of who are you going to contact as soon as the storm hits, because you have already a relationship with them, that's key to your quick recovery. You want to dry out your building as quick as possible so water stops coming in and you can work on the interior immediately. So we're going to touch a little bit on the roles and responsibility of the different contractors that we just talked about. So the insurance agent, as Beth was saying, verify the coverage, clarify your limits, make sure you understand what your coverages are and the limits are. That is so important, so you don't have a false sense of security, that you have an insurance policy, but the insurance can have limits that are under what you really need in case of an emergency. So, and again, it's not going to happen after the storm. It has to happen before the storm. Have your agent explain those limitations, so if you have to make some changes or expand your coverage, that can be done before the storm. They'll present additional options. You know, you might have an endorsement to your policy that will increase your coverage, or that might increase the situations which under you're covered, and anticipate any roadblocks. Have your insurance agent explain to you, in case of a claim, what documents you need to have ready to expedite your claim, so that you're not struggling after the storm to locate documents or locate photographs or anything. Have them, which will be roadblocks to your claim. So anticipate what those roadblocks will be and have them ready. So God forbid you need it, you have them ready.
Ricardo,
Process. Excuse me.
can I add something to that for you
Sure.
too? With respects to any changes, now, once we're in the cone of uncertainty, when Ricardo says, you know, take care of this beforehand, don't wait till it's again in our area, because the carriers will block us off and say we can't make any changes. That also includes if you have any renewals that are coming up right before hurricane season or during hurricane season, and there's an impending hurricane and we're in that cone of uncertainty. Get that renewal wrapped up well before, because if you start talking about it once the carrier's already shut down, they will not renew any coverage until after the storm passes and they put us in the clear.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
Hey,
welcome.
Ricardo, before you continue on, Beth, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Ricardo, there was a question here regarding asbestos or other environmental concerns with respect to construction materials after a storm. Is there a concern about that?
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to asbestos, you cannot just remove materials that have asbestos and go dump them. There's certain procedures that need to be followed. And they are very specific, and there are very high fines for not following those guidelines. So that's the importance of having an assessment done to your building prior to the hurricane season. There are specific companies that do asbestos testing, and they'll take a sample of whether it's your drywall or whether it's your roofs or your EFA system, and provide you. It's very inexpensive, but you will know and have it ahead of time. And that's a great question, and something that everybody should know in case of building damage. Continuing with the roles and responsibilities of the insurance agent, clarify with them the timeline. And I know that after the storm, this can vary, and it's going to depend on the amount of work that they do. But if you make things easier for them to process your claim, I can assure you that your claim and the resolution of your claim will be faster than if you don't provide them with all the information. The claim conditions, how do you present a claim? See if what else is covered under your insurance and the various disciplines covered by your policy, like the remediation, if that's included in your policy, the building exterior, the structural, the electrical, the mechanical. All this can either be included or not included in your policy, but you have to know ahead of time what to expect and do it sooner rather than later. We're going to move to your restoration professional. So the restoration professional they can help you verifying the current conditions. They can help you with the asbestos testing. Just as your building envelope professional can help you with the outside, they can help you with the inside. Check the insurance coverages and limitations in terms of the interior damage. See what type of documentation that you would need in order to provide the insurance company with a claim. Set after the storm fees and response time in writing. Don't wait to negotiate fees after the storm. Do it before the storm so that there are no surprises on how much your restoration professional will charge in case they have to take action on your building. Do it in writing so that there are no surprises. Sign an emergency response agreement. What this does is it allows to eliminate roadblocks for them to be able to access your building and start working immediately, so that you don't have to go through any red tape or any document signing, or that you have to be collecting signatures in order for them to start working on your building. Do that ahead of time so that everything is set up front and they can just show up to your building and start working, because you already have the fees and you already have the scope of what they're going to be doing. Set a communication protocol. Put together an emergency contact roster for your organizations, for their organization. And if the telephone communication is not possible, make it a WhatsApp or a text message or email. Have all those contact numbers and means of communication in place before the storm happens, so that you can communicate with your restoration professional in a timely manner. After the storm, they have to do a condition assessment. They have to see what your building needs before they start deploying equipment. If your building only had some wall or roof damage and there was no interior damage, there's no need for them to show up with dehumidifiers and blowers and all these things, because that only it's a waste of time. They might charge you for that. So make sure that there's a plan to make the assessment and have somebody do the assessment before they start deploying equipment and personnel. Deploy the mitigation plan according to your needs and priorities. Let them know what your priorities are so that, you know, if it's the common areas, if it's specific areas of your building that they need to attend first, have that in a plan. And have them coordinate with other disciplines. Just to give you an example, after a storm, there's damage to the interior, there's damage to the roofs. It doesn't make any sense to start working on drying the interior if your roof is not dried in. Because if it rains at night, all the things that you're drying today are gonna get wet again. So have them coordinate with the roofing contractor that's doing the drying so that they know which areas are being dried in and they can start working on the interior and not before, so that no time is wasted, no resources are wasted. And again, it has to go, if it's gonna get paid by the insurance, they're gonna question, why did you start drying before the roof was taken care of? Or before the windows were reinstalled, or the building exterior was protected. So make sure they coordinate with the other disciplines. And communicate any safety concerns if needed. You know, if you know that you know where your mechanical rooms are, you let them know that, you know, or give them the plans of how your your electrical installation is, so they know where they are, and they're not start poking holes where your electrical conduits are, or you know, around your electrical room is. So let them know if there's any safety concerns for you and your building. You know, we're gonna go to the building envelope professional. Before the hurricane season, verify your building conditions. Again, this is a great time to see if there are any things that need to be taken care of as preventive maintenance. And it is before the storm. Verify your warranty standing. And this is something that Zack touched a little bit on, the roof warranties. We'll be more than glad, at no cost to you, to do a warranty analysis of your roofs and tell you if there's something that can be done to either increase your coverage, or that you need to talk to the manufacturer, or we can help you with that to make sure that your warranty and that you understand what your warranty will cover, especially on the wind speeds of your warranty. There are some warranties that will only cover up to 55 miles an hour. There are some will cover up to 74 miles an hour, which is when a tropical storm turns into a hurricane. And most warranties will limit that to their coverage. But if your warranty is at 50 or 54 or 55, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation with the manufacturer and see if there's anything that you can do to increase the coverage of your warranty up to 74, which is when it turns into a hurricane.
And Ricardo, along those lines, again, that covers usually material or by the installer. It doesn't usually cover the damages that result because of the workmanship or the material. That defaults back to insurance. So there's a lot of misconception out there. And I get the question quite often, or the statement, well, I have a 20-year warranty. Well, the 20-year warranty doesn't protect you if the roof fails and your whole building is damaged, or, you know, because of this hurricane.
Yes, and thank you, Beth, for making that observation. No roof warranties will cover consequential damages. That's where it jumps into your insurance coverage. I have a very in-depth presentation of roof warranties that, if you're interested, contact Peggy and we can put together another seminar for roof warranties. It's called Roof Warranties, The Ugly Truth. And we can have a full hour conversation about roof warranties and what to look for. Going back to the roles and responsibility of your building envelope professional, your building envelope professional would present a scope of work to minimize storm impact. Again, identifying some areas that can help you minimize the impact in case of a storm. You can set a post-storm inspection consultation fees in writing. So after the storm, you want to make sure that there's an assessment to your roof, your walls, your windows, because we have had in this area wind events and rain events where the hurricane comes, but it keeps raining for a week, and the hurricane blows and the roofs, but then the damage is done after the hurricane when it keeps on raining on your building, or when you have wind events that the structure or your facade or your windows get damaged because of the wind event. So make sure you know what the condition of your building is after the storm, so you can also take actions in mitigating those damages. Sign an emergency response agreement if your building envelope professional has to come and assess your building. After the storm is not a good time to negotiate those fees. It's before the storm, and you also get on the priority list for those professionals to come and assess your building. All the contractors and all the consultants will be extremely busy after a storm. And as Zack was saying, you have to start relying on people from out of state, and that can be a risky proposition. Just as with every other member of your A team, set a communications protocol. Get their numbers, their emails, their alternative numbers, office numbers, WhatsApp numbers, everything that can facilitate the communication with your A team. After the storm, again, get a building exterior assessment, have a scope of work for the dry-in, because there are two phases that happen after the storm. One is the dry-in, which is just doing or taking action to stop the water from coming into the building before you do a permanent repair. The second phase is doing the second phase, the permanent repairs to your building. So make sure that you have a scope of work on those two things clear, so that you understand what the process is. And it's also key to the other members of your A team, your mitigation team, to know how is it going to happen, because keeping the building dry and stopping the water from coming in is crucial for all the other activities to happen. Your building exterior professional can help you also with the coordination of your roofing contractor, your waterproofing contractor, your mechanical contractor, etc. Anything that has to happen outside your building. And then you have somebody that can provide you consultation for the long-term repairs of your building, and maybe hardening your building so that in case of another storm, you don't end up in the same spot. Your structural engineer, again, will check the conditions before the storm, see if there's anything that needs to be tended to before it happens. When it comes to structural, different scope than the exterior contractor, the electrical contractor. Structural, it's a lot more complicated, takes a lot more time, takes a lot more resources, but that's something that you want to know before the storm, especially in case of a major hurricane. Set the post-storm inspection and engineering fees. Have them come and check, especially if there's a major storm. Come check your building after, because your building, depending on the height, depending on the size of your building, if the storm is strong enough, it'll create some movement on your building, and you want to make sure that the structure is not damaged after the storm. Get a pre-emergency fee structure and an agreement with the engineer. Set your communication protocol. And after the storm, same thing, have them come and assess your building, issue safety concern if needed. If there are things that could become a safety hazard, he can point them out and get the engineering for the long-term repairs. The debris removal professional, before the storm, verify the conditions, do a tour of your property and the critical route of access from the main road to the entrance of your building, or to your electrical room, or to your utilities room, and see what trees are around there, see what could fall on the road, see what can damage, depending on where it falls, if it can damage the building, if it can damage power lines, have them assess that with you, so that if you need to trim certain branches of the trees, or remove or move certain trees, so that in case of a storm, you don't get additional damage from them falling on power lines or your building, or in the middle of the road, you can take some action before that. And that's developing your plan according to your needs. Set the fees beforehand so that you're not surprised with the fees. Sign the agreement before the storm, set your communication protocol, and after the storm, deploy the cleanup plan according to your needs and priorities. They already know what the critical route is. Help them come and without any red tape or any other additional signature or PO, and have them start cleaning the access to your building, and communicate any safety concerns if needed. With all your professional contractors, your roofing contractors, your window contractors, your plumbing, your mechanical, electrical, verify current conditions and execute the scope of work to minimize the storm impact. If there are anything that needs to be done or you can do before the storm, again, remember that ratio 1 to 10 between preventive maintenance or preventive action or an emergency action. So you'll save some money if you follow that. Set the fees beforehand. Don't wait to negotiate after the storm. Sign the emergency response agreement and set the communication protocol. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is with your A team to have that communication protocol. Communication is what's going to bind all your plan together, and when you deploy your plan, is what's going to make it successful. After the storm, double check and make an after storm assessment of all your utilities. Execute the emergency plan if needed. Have them coordinate with other disciplines. For an example, your electrical contractor will have to coordinate with your restoration contractor to access some areas, to access power lines, to access certain things inside the building. Your building exterior professional will help you coordinate actions that are on the outside of the building, your roofs, your mechanical contractor, if AC units got damaged, if AC units got blown off and dragged around the roof, all that has to be coordinated so that you have a quick recovery after the storm. Communicate any safety concerns if needed, and generate long-term proposals for the recovery of your building and helping you getting back to business as quick as possible. One very important is you and your staff. Before the hurricane, create a critical operation list. Include your staff in putting all these actions together and putting this plans together with your vendors. It is important that they get stewardship of the plans, and they know your vendors, they know what to do, that they are fully familiarized with what to do after the storm. Select your preferred professionals and contractors. Make them part. They have the relationships, they have the knowledge, they've worked with your vendors. So include them in that process. Set some planning meetings. The planning meetings are not only going to be internal, they're going to be also with your vendors. So have them participate in those planning meetings. Have them sign or be aware of those emergency response agreements. Make them part of the emergency protocol and include them in your roster when you communicate with your vendors. And communicate the plan internally so it can be deployed flawlessly. It is important that everybody knows what to do, where to go, who to call, what not to do after the storm, so that you can get back to business as quick as possible. After the storm, allow them to secure their home and family. Help them. Sometimes your vendors can help your staff secure their homes, so that they can get back to work and help you get your building back on its feet as quick as possible. Have safety checks on certain critical operations. Make sure that they check on your electrical, see if the internet is working, see if your phones are working. They'll help you deploy your emergency response plan. Follow the communication protocol. I mean, make sure that they are included in that. Communicate safety concerns if needed. If they see something, they have to say something. It's chaotic after a storm, so make sure that everybody is aware of what to look for after the storm, and make sure that they communicate it. Facilitate communication and coordination with professional contractors. Make sure that everybody has a copy of the rosters, because they might be doing some work from home. And but if they don't have internet and they only have their phone, they should have a copy of the roster of all the vendors, so they can coordinate from home their access to your building. So it is important to anticipate all these things, and they'll help you verify progress. If they've already deployed your debris removal contractor, make sure that they stay on top of, make one responsible to follow up with the progress of that contractor, so that after your roads are clear, you can start asking your roofer in the premises, your building envelope professional into the premises, and so you can help coordinate that work and make it flow more easily. So here's the checklist, and I'll be glad to send this to Peggy so she can share it with everybody. You know, always consider safety first. As I was telling you, after the storm, it becomes chaotic. Don't put yourself at risk. It is important to get back to business as quick as possible, but you have to do it safely. So always put safety first. Check with local authorities for access requirement around your building for quick access. Just to give you an idea, if your building is on the barrier islands, I remember with, I think it was with Wilma, they closed all the bridges, and they were not allowing any contractor trucks or anybody into the barrier islands if they didn't have the proper identification, or they didn't have their contractor license, or they didn't have an ID that would show that they lived in that area. And that could mean that the authorities will block your A-team to access your building if you're not ready. So talk to the authorities, see what they would require contractors to have in order for them to have access to your building. And that could be, it's a letter or a notarized letter from you saying that XYZ contractor is pre-approved to access your building after the storm. You put their license number there, and they verify that that's the contractor that's on the letter, and that will give them access to your building. So those little details are things that most people overlook, but can really make a difference on the response and getting your building back to normal. Same thing if your buildings are in a gated community or when they're gates, make sure that everybody knows what to do and what to bring to get access to your building. Make sure your vendors know what that additional access requirements are. Share your plan with your organization. Make sure that not only your staff knows it, but your tenants know it, the residents know it, that there is a plan in place to stay out of the way, what not to do, make sure they stay safe, make sure they don't go around the building, making assessments themselves, because that could be dangerous and that could impede proper access or proper action from your vendors to help you get back to business. So communicate that with your tenants and everybody that has to do anything with your building. Verify with your security access that they know what the protocol is and who's going to be working without further notice on your building right after the storm. For every plan and protocol, have a plan B. So if that doesn't work, what would be your plan B? If this contractor for some reason cannot service us immediately, have two contractors, have a second best contractor that can service you and your building right after the storm. And don't panic. You know, there's a series of unfortunate events when people panic. You know, it's just a domino effect. If anybody here is a boater, that's what happens when you're on a boat and things get a little dicey and people start panicking. Everything falls apart. People start running into each other, falling overboard because they're panicked. Don't panic. Work your plan. That's what this is for, to allow you the time and mind to put a plan together. So work your plan. So your A team is going to be put together by you and your staff, your trusted professionals, and your trusted contractors. So make sure you have one, you have what it needs. Zack was talking about 23 named storms and 3 storms that could be category 3 or more. So it's just a matter of time. I mean, we dodged the bullet on the East Coast a couple of years ago when the hurricane went to the West Coast, but we never know. It's been hot as hell lately, and the water in the Atlantic are super warm. So I would really put attention on what's coming this hurricane season. So don't let your guard down. Plan ahead, and if there's anything that we can do to help you, here's my contact information. The email is the best way to get in contact with us. And again, I offer to anyone on this presentation at no cost to you to have a warranty review for your building, and we can do inspections and assessments and all that, but we can start with the warranty assessment and get you going in the right direction.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Mhm.
Ricardo, a lot of useful information there, and it's all tying back to having a plan, surrounding yourself with your team, your A team, your key players, making sure your insurance documents are in place, as Beth said, and to have them reviewed, excuse me. So really appreciate it. I did put your contact info in the chat box, but it appears I might have a spelling mistake in there. So if you could put it in, that would be great. Put your phone number too. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Peggy to see if there's any questions and or comments until we turn it over to the panelists.
Let me stop
Um,
sharing. Hold on. I don't even know where I'm at.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add except for, again, a couple of recommendations is that, maybe like just when we were kids, we used to have a day where we practiced evacuation. I mean, you know, when you have even senior citizens in a building, you know, on the 10th floor, the 12th floor, maybe even have a floor captain, or maybe the younger people on a different floor, somebody could be a floor captain, just knock on doors, make sure everybody's evacuated if that's what needs to be done, was one thing I was thinking of. You know, the other thing is to, like I say, have a town hall meeting and review all these points. That was excellent. Ricardo, I love to have you every year. You do such a great job. Another thing too is a phone chain. I know that's an old fashioned idea, but you know, believe it or not, you know, you want to double check, but maybe, you know, 2, 3, 4 follow each other, go on to the next 2, 3, 4, work together and kind of just cover your whole building. So one person, or, you know, the board can't do everything. Everybody knows that, but the board, you need to communicate that to your residents and tell them, you know, hey, we all need to help each other type thing. But I think a phone chain would be great to have. And, you know, the floor sponsor, one thing I thought of. And past that, I'd like to turn it over to our first panelist. And the first panelist will be Lisa Elkin. Ben, take it away. Lisa, are you there? She's got slides also.
There she is.
I'm here. Sorry about that. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Elkin. I'm with Alliance Association Bank. And as you know, the hurricane season is almost here. So you don't need to have any fear, but I'm going to help you get financially prepared because the time is now, and let me show you how. So I have 5 top tips I'd like to share with you. So ask yourself this question: do you feel that your association is financially prepared for the upcoming 2024 hurricane season? Number 1, establish your capital improvement project financing proactively and emergency lines of credit proactively before an emergency happens. It's very important. I mean, yes, hurricane season starts June 1st. However, really the heart of hurricane season is not really in June. So yes, we're only 2 weeks out from the start of it. But if you're looking to do roofing and paving and plumbing and any sort of projects like that, you know, there could be weather delays, there could be a hurricane. So I think it's important to plan and prepare for that. So that's one of my first top main tips. With emergency lines of credit, I think there's maybe some misunderstanding about really the purpose of those. They're not really used to, for operating shortfall. They're for a true emergency. So here's an example. Let's say I'm a landscaper and I know that your community has an emergency line of credit. The community just had major damage, let's say $25,000 worth of damage at a bare minimum. They can immediately draw from that emergency line of credit, get that damage repaired, and then really start getting their community back to normal. So an emergency line of credit is what I refer to almost like cash is king or queen. If a community has that emergency line of credit, they can draw on it. Now, most of the emergency lines of credit that banks issue, the majority of them really don't get used, or they get used for a very short period of time. However, what some people may not understand about emergency lines of credit is banks cannot lend that money out for capital improvement projects or any sort of other loans. So if your community takes out, let's say, $1 million line of credit, emergency line of credit, the bank has to set aside that $1 million. Now, in most cases, they don't get used, but there is a cost to having that because we are not able to lend out that money for any other purpose. So if you're interested in emergency line of credit, I suggest you reach out to your banker, find out, the minimum. Most banks have a minimum, maybe 100,000. Some banks have a maximum of $2 million. and figure out if maybe an emergency line of credit might be a great way to be financially prepared for the upcoming season. The next tip is obtaining a business credit card for your community. Most banks issue credit cards with limits as low as $500 and then maybe one as high as $100,000. But with the credit card, unlike having, immediate, like having ATM access, with the credit card, I say it's for immediate cash needs. Now, I have many condominiums that have credit cards. They keep them locked up and they only will use them in case of emergency. Then other communities have that credit card to use as they want. Now, up until this year, homeowner associations were getting debit cards, and there's legislation now that's going to change that. But condominiums are no longer allowed to have debit cards. And I think that was probably several years ago. So I would say the next tip would be getting a business credit card. The third tip is this one that I think is very important, is verifying that your account signers are current on each of your community's association signature cards. Because let's say you just recently had new board elections, and maybe you are getting around to getting the signature cards updated. I would go ahead and have your bank provide you with what they show on file and make sure that everything is current. The fourth tip I have is that if an emergency or a hurricane were to strike, then you want to determine who has the keys to the office file cabinets so that there's access to any of the association's documents. So you may say, well, I know that the property manager has the keys, but does anybody else have the keys, or who else has this? So that would be my fourth tip, is like, where are the keys? Make sure you know where are the keys. And then my fifth tip is ensuring that the documents and papers are kept and stored in a fireproof, waterproof safe. And I put together this document checklist, and I'd just like to go over a few of these. These are not just for communities, but for you as an individual, because it's quite a long list of documents. But one of the things that people don't think about is even like computer, with having access to passwords, with making sure you have hard copies of certain documents, because as you know, if a hurricane were to strike, you may not be able to be accessible to a computer. So I put together this document checklist, and my tip to you is the time to prepare is now, and don't procrastinate. And then just a little bit about Alliance Association Bank. We've been around since 2008. We have over 9.3 billion in association deposits. And when you bank with me at AAB, think of the A, B, and C. A, association only products and services. B, better business financing. And C, convenience, where we bring the resources of the bank to you. So I'd like to thank all of you for your time today. And if you have any other banking related questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. But I would like you to say a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Lisa Elkin. I've been with Alliance Association Bank since 2013, and I cover the greater South Florida region, which goes all the way through Port St. Lucie.
Excellent. Okay, that's awesome, Lisa. What we'll do is, if anybody has any questions, Ben, do you see any questions in there for her?
Yeah. I don't have any for Lisa, but I have one for Zack.
Zack, there he is.
Sure, I'm here.
Zack, from a guest here, can you tell us what the current codes are for pitched roof townhomes or single family detached homes? Is it straps or are clips acceptable?
So clips are acceptable, but what we recommend is always talking to your insurance carrier, because there's no better time to put straps on than when you're doing something like a roof replacement. And if your premium discounts outweigh the cost of the clips, or will outweigh it, over the course of the next couple of years, it's a great time to do that. Now we have to prove, if your building was built before 1988, and it has the wooden deck, the wood trusses, we have to prove that you've had those straps or clips installed. If not, it's a requirement that we have to do during the roof project or roof construction.
Okay, great. I'm going to excuse Lisa. She has another appointment, and thank you so much, Lisa. It was great information. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ben for your presentation as a panelist.
Awesome. So, I'll make mine real quick here, but as we said, my name's Ben Friedman. I'm the president and owner of City Quiet Windows and Doors. We provide turnkey white glove installation services for all window, door, storefront and railing projects. We're centrally located in Boca Raton, where our headquarters is. We have an office in North Miami and Fort Myers, as well as in Naples. We were very, very involved in the hurricane cleanup / rebuild from Hurricane Ian. I can tell you that it was devastating. It was the hardest thing to actually see. We were in the middle of a project on Naples Beach prior to the hurricane coming, and we had all of our equipment. We had all of our trailers of windows, lots of miscellaneous items on site. And I could tell you that when Zack spoke about storm surge, it's not always about the wind speed. The ocean is a very powerful, plays a very powerful presence in these storms. Our 30,000 ton containers got washed away that had, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of windows in them. So, my best bet would be to go back to Beth here for a minute and suggest, you speak to your insurance provider about, while you're having a construction project going on and it happens to either be during hurricane season, approaching hurricane season, or really at any point in time, understand what the liability is of the association once construction materials are on site. What happens if they get stolen? What happens if they get damaged? What happens if they disappear and they're in the middle of the ocean right now, right? So that was a big thing that took place for us. Unfortunately, we had a positive experience with that. Big thing, prep, obviously, your A-team, assemble it, your banker, your engineer, your architect, perhaps, an owner's rep, your insurance team, your contractor, whether it's windows, doors, roofs, painting, just real big on assembling your team, having them all on a speed dial, introducing them all to each other, making sure that all your ducks are in a row. Have your financing in place, know all of those positive things that insurance may not cover, and or you may need to cover to build back your building while you're dealing with your insurance claim. And just be prepared, really. That's what this is all about. Assemble your team, be prepared. We're in a very funky environment here, and for us here on the East Coast, I'm not sure who's part of this webinar from the West Coast. For us on the East Coast, it's only a matter of time, and it's cyclical, and it's gonna happen, and you just gotta put yourself in the right position to abate as much damage as you can.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, the next panelist I wanted to introduce is Katie Basford. She, again, the National Account Executive for Vinteum Software. Katie, tell us about yourself as well as Vinteum.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peggy. I actually have a few slides here as well, so I'll go ahead and pop those up real quick. But thank you so much for that intro. As Peggy mentioned, I am the National Sales Executive for Vinteum, so I work with clients all across the US for Vinteum software. And today I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction of our platform, Neigbrs. So Neigbrs is an all-in-one software solution for HOAs as well as condo associations. With all of the new Florida laws coming down the pipeline, compliance is absolutely crucial, and Neigbrs does offer compliant websites as well as secure portals for your residents. We also have an easy-to-use app that keeps all of your residents connected, and we offer a range of management and communication features to make life easier for board members as well as community association managers while keeping all of your residents informed here. Vinteum has been in the market for over 10 years. We operate all across North America, but a primary location here is Florida. Most of our clients are in Florida, so we are very familiar with this market. And that kind of brings me back to the topic of the webinar today, which is hurricane preparedness. We understand how hurricane season can create extra responsibilities to ensure that the community is safe and informed. So today I'll focus on how our platform can assist you in preparing for hurricane season and how it can facilitate communication before, during, and after a potential hurricane or storm here. So the first feature here that I want to highlight is our notices feature. So you can send out notices to remind residents about how to prepare for hurricanes. As Zach mentioned, it is very important to have a plan here. Many of our clients utilize this feature to let residents know about upcoming storms and best practices to prepare. It's a great way to remind them to secure outdoor items and check emergency supplies such as flashlights, non-perishable food, medication, and first aid supplies. You can also remind residents to stay tuned with local weather alerts and community notifications they receive for advice and updates from their neighbors. All of these notifications are omni-channel, so residents will receive the information via text, email, as well as push notification. And that brings me to our next feature here, which is our text blast feature. As Zach mentioned, text is the best communication tool during an emergency situation. And with Neighbrs, sending a text blast to the entire community all at once takes only a few clicks. Administrators can choose either the whole community, or they can narrow it down if you have some snowbirds who don't need to be on the list there. But from there, you can write the message and send it out immediately, which makes communication very fast and efficient, especially in an emergency type situation. We also have our smart calling feature. Our smart calling feature is a text-to-speech feature that allows you to type in a message and then send an automated call with that message. I know that communicating with modern tools can be really convenient, but some of our less tech-savvy residents may get left out of some of those digital features, so it is really nice to have an old-fashioned phone calling system to ensure that everyone is receiving the message here. Our next feature here is going to be our document storage feature. So you can efficiently store all of your important documentation here, including governing documents, insurance policies, vendor contracts, maintenance records, all of the above in one accessible location. And I know that during the chaos of hurricane destruction and the aftermath, finding specific documents swiftly is going to be really crucial here. So with this feature, you can easily locate necessary paperwork with just a few clicks. So it'll save a lot of valuable time and effort here. Before and after pictures of the community can also be stored within this secure portal. So this is a great way to have all of that crucial evidence for insurance claims, just make that process a little bit smoother and more accurate. We also have our service request feature. After a hurricane, residents may encounter various issues such as fallen trees, structural damage, flooding damage. Our service request feature allows residents to report any abnormalities directly through our platform, and all of these reports are stored in one place, so it's very easy for board members as well as community association managers to view all of those requests, and it also provides transparency for residents to see the status of their request as well. And then finally, we do have our social network and chat feature. This tool allows residents to communicate with their neighbors, giving them a network to help prepare for upcoming storms and hurricanes, stay safe during the actual storm, and clean up any damage or debris afterwards. I am going to kick it over to one of our current clients here. This is Rachel Miller. She manages a community in Estero, Florida with 640 units. Rachel said most people have their smartphones on them, so when they get a notification from us, it's immediate. Everything goes out to the owner via the website, usually through the email notices. I only use text and phone notices if there's a major emergency. So that's the biggest thing that we really have grown to appreciate with Vinteum. I don't want to see any hurricanes, but in the event of a hurricane or tropical storm, it's an excellent tool for us. I think Rachel said that perfectly. Obviously it would be great if we never had to utilize any of these tools, but it is important to have a plan in place just in case you do find yourself in that situation here. And I'll go ahead and wrap it up here, but just so you're aware, if you are interested in learning more about Neighbrs, and you're curious how we can help your community not only stay compliant with all of the new laws in Florida, as well as preparing for hurricane season and just general communication and management of your community here, please feel free to reach out. We are running a $99 discount right now, so go ahead and schedule a free demo utilizing that QR code, or you can reach out to me at katie@vinteum.io or give us a call at 844-900-0910. Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks, Katie. That's awesome. I do have a question. I don't know if this is a feature or not, but can individuals also store documents, you know, if they don't have their own cloud or anything like that? I mean, can the office some way store documents privately?
Absolutely. So we can adjust the permissions for each document, so we can narrow all the way down to individual residents within the system having access. Great question, Peggy.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Beth Garcia Swopa. Again, she's the Senior VP for Brown & Brown Insurance. Beth, tell us about yourself and what you do for associations.
Okay, well, my name is Beth Garcia Swopa. I'm with Brown & Brown Insurance. I'm a Senior Vice President. I work out of the Fort Lauderdale office. However, I live in Martin County, and I'm basically all over the state of Florida, as well as Georgia, South Carolina. We are a national company, so therefore I have clients in other aspects as well across the United States. We are publicly traded. As far as our services, as you know, we insure more condominiums in Florida than any other agency. And as a result, can provide a lot of information to you, which I'm going to share some today with respects to hurricane preparedness, as well as what to happen once the hurricane has passed. So I'm going to kind of stay on the same topic of what everyone's been saying, you know, plan. You know, before the hurricane arrives, you know, we say a hurricane watch is 74 miles per hour, normally within 36 hours. And then we go into hurricane warning, which is expected within 24 hours. You know, usually there are different levels of planning. So you know what to anticipate as they start discussing, things are in motion, you know what the plan is. Again, as Ricardo mentioned and Zack, have your A-team ready to go, have your pre-inspections done, have your pictures done. They should be done by now. If not, just get on it in the next couple of weeks, because, you know, again, once these hurricanes come, they come fast and furious, as we know. And when you say the cone of uncertainty, they'll say South Florida, they'll say the East Coast, West Coast, and all of a sudden the whole state is hit. And as mentioned by Zack, you know, that storm surge issue can take up to 1,000 miles. Now, you think about that, that's a pretty large proximity, and it's not even just the storm surge of the water, as well as it is the underground pipes. If they aren't cleaned properly in your communities, you're going to have mass flooding in every community. It doesn't matter if you have water around you or not, you're going to have massive flooding. Peggy mentioned the phone list. It is antiquated, yes. Do we all have it? Absolutely. Even Brown & Brown. We have an emergency contact list. We have a chain of command. We have some of the services that was mentioned by Vinteum, that Katie mentioned, that we have the texting, the communication, because, you know, again, everyone lives in different places. So we don't know who's going to have access to Wi-Fi. We know pretty much everybody at some point will have some access to something, whether it's telephone or computers. As far as obtaining what you need, Peggy gave her little list, great list. Make sure that generator works. Don't wait again until we're in the cone of uncertainty to have the company come over to check your generator. We check our generator into our property two times a year. And then, you know, these occasional, even this morning, we lost electric. There was a bad storm. Our generator came on. So we have these summer storms and these events that start happening that we know that can be just like a little hurricane or extreme tropical storm coming through, and it's just a summer storm. So just make sure that stuff is working. I want to add to her list sandbags and tarps. Only because those two, again, we talked about mitigating any damage going forward. You know, Zack, they do a great job about the roof inspections. If there is something that's taking place, you want to at least be able to protect your roof, to protect everything underneath the roof the best you can. With respects to the live wires, as Ricardo mentioned, you know, FP&L shutdown. It's very easy to communicate with them these days. They're even on text, so you can call them, get in touch with it. But again, those numbers should be part of your emergency contact list in your plan, because again, you want to protect your building, you want to protect the people within your building. And during the summer months, while we know a lot of snowbirds are gone, you still have a lot of residents that are living here now full time. So we have to take care of them. I always say, make sure you have cash on hand. You know, we assume all of our banks are going to work, but as you know, if you have to have somebody come over and do some work, they're not going to work on an IOU and they're not going to be able to process your credit card. So make sure you have ample money on hand as well. I'm not going to go through the pre-inspection stuff because Zack did a great job with that, and I know he's going to send that information out. So thank you, Zack. I'm going to share my screen now because I have some information. Let's see here to share. Sorry, I just have to move something out of the way here. As far as the planning and recovery, once everything, the storm comes through and you get to evaluate what is taking place. You know, you've stored your documents now, as Katie mentioned, you can store, they have the capability of storing for you. You have them packaged up in a binder or in a plastic bag, whatever the situation may be. You know, pull that policy out, get in touch with your broker or your agent. So we at Brown & Brown, we have a procedure in place. If it was to hit our area, for example, we have a phone system that moves to another part of the state that is not affected. So at any one point, our clients would not go down as far as you wouldn't be able to contact us because we do have a process in place to continue to service our clients. Again, you know, review your documents before this time comes, know what your deductibles are, what could potentially be your out-of-pocket exposures. And that includes not only your building, of course, but your property and whether it's wind or flood, because again, two different coverages, as Zack mentioned with Ian. It was, you know, yes, it was a hurricane. However, the majority of the devastation occurred was from flooding. So know what your responsibilities are and what your deductibles are for each of those lines of coverages. With respect at this point, also you have your unit owners. They need to know what they're responsible for. I have a great sheet that talks about unit owners versus associations. I can have Peggy, we can do a mail out email blast, and I can send that to everyone. You can disseminate that to your residents. It kind of gives them a nice, easy snapshot of what you're responsible for versus the association. Again, along the same topics, assemble your team, whether it's third parties, who's going to be your subcontractors, who's going to be your contractors that you call to get on staff, but more importantly, within your association, who's going to be the one handling the text blast, the email blast. Again, you have to designate one person normally to handle that because unfortunately we love committees, but sometimes there's a disconnect as far as who handles one. So it's best to have one person and then a backup in case that person is not available. Notification of all parties involved. Again, whether it's tenants, land vendors, owners, everyone who's going to be involved in the process at that point should be contacted. You also have to, as we talked about and Ricardo mentioned, local authorities, emergency services, resources before and during the storm, adhere to what they say. You know, we think that we can survive, but as Peggy mentioned, sometimes someone has a medical condition and what seems like it won't be a big deal now becomes a very big deal. And once they tell you to evacuate, they don't come back in because they're going to be risking again their lives. So it has to be a devastation effect for them too. So they always say adhere to us because once that happens, then they're not going to be available. As far as identify documents, loss-related issues that could impair operations. These were the photos and everything that Zack had discussed earlier. What it looked like before, what it looked like after. Take as many pictures. There's no such thing as too many pictures. Again, it shows the situation before or after. In your personal home, again, residential home, and I used to do this. I had shutters I'd have to put on. I took the pictures of before, after with the shutters on. So if there was a claim, the carrier could see I actually did my due diligence in putting up my shutters. Those government documents or bylaws, everything that you need, they always suggest storing them off-site, not to store them in your building. So if you have a bank vault or someone else you can, trust to keep these documents, keep them somewhere else, again, not on your property. Determining a loss associated cost tracking system that works for you. Again, this gets into once you determine what are the damages occurred. I always say with respects to claims, manage your expectations. If we have a devastating, year and there's a lot of claims, the carriers are already short-staffed on their claims handlers. We know this. So they're going to communicate the best they can. We're going to communicate the best they can. What best thing you can do for your association, again, is to mitigate any future damages, to protect what you have within your means, and whatever you can do to protect yourself, of course. Vinteum mentioned they offered those shared documents or protection of those documents, utilize their services. With respects to remediation contractors to complete emergency repairs, again, insurance companies are going to work diligently to get out there, but the more prepared you are, the easier their job will be. So take those pictures, figure out what can be done. Again, pay attention to the loose wires. These are things that we think of, but when that time comes, unfortunately, we have to put some things in writing because we forget a lot at that time. So it can happen in a second. Building damage occurs. Again, access those governing documents by the bylaws, the difference between the association and what the unit owners are to cover. Bare walls, all-in associations. We have a lot of co-ops here in Florida. So again, determine what's the responsibility of you versus what's the responsibility of the unit owner versus the association. Preparing for the next steps in the building damage. Again, emergency repairs. Insurance companies know that you're going to do whatever you can, document it, pay it, and let the carrier reimburse you. You have to do whatever you can, unfortunately, and prepare whether it's using Lisa to have that line of credit, or again, having a fund already, on top of the other reserves you already have going, have another one for emergency situations like this. If you have heavy machinery or equipment, such as elevators, say there's water intrusion, you have those type of damages, again, you have to contact the proper company or your elevator maintenance company in order to protect those heavy equipment machinery. And lastly, track internal labor. So again, this is who's doing what, how much it's costing you, because again, this is reimbursable by the insurance company, depending on your coverages, of course. But it should be once everything is all said and done and complete. Minus your, deductibles, you always want to try to be made whole. And this is the easiest way to do it before, there are any issues that happen going forward. And that's pretty much everything that I have, Peggy.
Excellent information. Excellent. Thank you so much for all of you guys and all your preparation. I do want to go back to Ricardo Moncada. Ricardo, I want to apologize. I did not ask you to introduce yourself and your business. You gave such a great presentation. I just was overwhelmed. So please introduce yourself again. You're muted.
Thanks, everybody. And I know we've been here a long time, so I'll be real quick. I'm the owner of RMS Building Envelope Consultants. Our motto is to protect the building owner's best interest when it comes to roofing and waterproofing. One important distinction is that we do not do any of the labor. We are only consultants, and we sit on your side of the table to protect you in the process of renovating your building exterior. So your roofs, your walls, your windows, parking garages, anything on the exterior that can be affected by water intrusion. That's our playground. I've been in this business for 35 years, and I want to thank Peggy for putting this together. I think that the body of panelists have provided really valuable information for any building owner. So I hope we get to do this again, and thanks everybody for your attention. And I put my information on the chat box, but I know Peggy's gonna send out the list of all the panelists, so that'll be, my information will be there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much again. I do also want to mention, if I didn't, I think I forgot to, that Diana Olert from Best Roofing was also a partner in crime here organizing this with me. We started talking about this in January, so that's how important it is, and that's how we selected everyone that was on today. So thank you, Diana. If she's not on, I want to ask Zack to please tell her how much I appreciate her. I want to close with some announcements.
Wait, I gotta interrupt you for two things, Peggy.
Sure.
One, we should give a shout out to Erica and introduce her somehow,
Okay.
if you'd like to do that.
Sure. Erica D'Alessandro is a longtime association representative calling on properties. She's with Nuvo Elevators. Nuvo is one of the national companies that is providing elevator preventative maintenance, new elevators, anything to do with elevators. And she's also working closely. I know for sure, I went on a property and she was there with a renovation. So very good source for elevator maintenance and new elevators. If you need one, her name will also be on the sponsor sheet, like Ricardo mentioned, that I will send out.
And and lastly, not sure if Ashley has anything to contribute here on behalf of Munyon.
No, not really, but I think that everyone had a lot to take away from today's, panel and what everyone had to say. So I think it was just overall, a great turnout and a lot of good information being shared.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. That was important. Okay, so here's what's coming up. I'm just going to rattle through it. I'll put it into the announcement with the sponsors as I follow up. But starting with CAI, that's the Association for CAMs and Board Members, the Gold Coast Division over here on the East Coast on May 21st is going to the meeting place for a meet and greet. So go to the website, CAI Gold Coast, and look that up. It's going to be from 5:30 to 7:30. Then following that, I've got here June the 8th. They're going to actually have a trade show. It's going to be at the South County Civic Center in Delray Beach, 8:30 to 6. So it's going to end at 4:30 really, and then go into a happy hour until 6. So please stop by, get some new information. Maybe you need a backup like Zack mentioned and Ricardo mentioned, a backup plan B. So you might meet some new vendors that could help you in your community. Next, I want to announce that on May 21st, which is next week, I have the Paving Lady Company presenting the solutions and anything to do with paving by the owner, Mauro Camuzzi. He's the president. And I hope he can join us on that. Look for the flyer to go out in the next day or so. May 30th, I have reserve advisors coming on. They're going to also give a presentation with all this construction going on, milestone inspections, law changes, and so on. Excellent company to listen to about reserves. On June 14th, I have Ray Engineering coming on, again, speaking about directly milestone inspection steps and how to achieve that. On July 2nd, I'll close with this one. I have Jane Boland from Peyton Boland Attorney Firm. She is going to recap all of the laws that were effective or will be effective on July 1st. So that is July 2nd. So it's going to be the most immediate education class from a law firm. And again, watch for the announcements. I just also want to thank Ricardo and Zack again for your presentations. Ben for your moderating today, all the panelists, sponsors, and I want to say stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Okay, see you.